You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element 451.
And I'm Daniella and Brendan, Element 451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element 451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to In Your Element. I'm super excited for today's guest because right before we were recording, we were just singing the praises of one of the best professional development memberships organizations, I think in our industry, High Ed Web, which is where Brandi and I met. But I am pleased and excited to welcome Brandi Hess, the Director of University Web and Digital Content at the University of Southern Indiana. Brandi, welcome to In Your Element.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm super pumped because we spent the last 2 years at High Ed Web, and I am excited to talk about your story because you're unique in that USI is a Bolt-only partner of Elements. I know.
And not just Bolt-only, first ever Bolt-only.
That's right.
Wow.
First ever official Bolt-only. Yeah, I mean, what an honor, right?
Yeah, I didn't know
you guys are
That's
the
awesome.
trailblazers. Well, yeah, we had so many use cases of people that were current partners that came in and adopted it. So we're like, they love it. But the first group to come in and get it, you guys kind of trailblazed that. So exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So tell us, Brandi, what you were looking for a chatbot, right? And what were you looking for in a chatbot? Why did Element stand out to y'all? Why was it a good fit? Tell the people what they want to know.
It was about this time last year that we had decided we had thought about building one in-house with our team, but then we thought, instead of like using all those resources to create a chatbot, we could spend that time doing something else and then just look for a vendor to provide that service. And so that search started about a year ago. We met Element 451 at High Ed Web last year, and that's where we found out about this Bolt bot there. And so when we came back from the conference, we started doing just some like vendor previews and that sort of thing. And what we were looking for was, something affordable right away, mainly because, we didn't have this as a budget item before. This was, something new. So we knew that we would have to do a budget ask and make sure that it was something that, benefited the entire website and not just certain parts of the website. So we were also looking for something that could be used on all of our pages and not just, maybe like admission specific or graduate specific pages, but something that could go on everything. And then we were looking for ways to help our audience find what they needed to cut down some of the email and call volume on things that we felt were answerable on our website if people just, kind of looked, like, how do I get my transcripts? Or do freshmen have to live on campus? Things like that. So some of the vendors that we looked at were very like admissions focused, and they were very conversion focused. Like they didn't really care about answering a question. They just wanted you to sign up for a visit or sign up for the RFI form or something like that. Like it was just very focused. And then one of them, they wanted you to preload like all sorts of questions and answers into a database for their AI chatbot, but that wasn't really an AI chatbot. So,
Yeah. I wish we
um,
had sound bites like some wah wah wah, like that. That's one of the biggest things we talk about whenever we talk to people about it. We're like, you don't want a decision tree. That's silly.
right, right. I mean, we would, and the AI is so fluid where you just like, you just want it to just go off of what you have in on your website or like in your loaded knowledge base and not have to like think ahead of time of what's something somebody's going to ask me. It's not the way AI is going.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I honestly, so many conversations we have, it's almost like re-educating people on what impact these can have because there's so much pent up frustration with chatbots and what that means from how you stand it up to even how it executes and actually talks with a student. The most powerful way to showcase how different ours is, how different Bolt is compared to chatbots is to show them. A lot of times I'll literally pull up so if they already have one, I'll go and I'll just have a conversation with them right there in the call. I'm like, see how you would not like this experience.
Yeah.
See how it's literally pointed. Like you say something like, hey, I don't know what I want to study. And it's like, oh, here, go look at our program page that has about 800 links of our 300 programs and find out what you want to do based off of that search. And so, yeah, I mean, it's about connecting with the student. It's about having a conversation with them and guiding them, not just pointing them to a landing page or being a question and answer bot.
Yeah. I think I also want to mention here too is that one of the things that we've been like delightfully surprised at is just how polite the chatbot is. I mean, because some of these questions, when you come in and you look at the transcript, and it's just like they're not providing a lot of good information, or they're not wording the question really well. Like if it was me, I'd just say, "Huh, what?" But no, the chatbot is like super polite and was like, "I don't quite understand. Could you ask that again?" It's just
Yeah.
very delightful conversation.
I think it's so important that you were looking for a conversational bot because I literally sat in a meeting with a partner the other day. We were talking about how to build out their knowledge base, and they were going down the decision tree, logic tree route. And I paused and I was like, listen, the bot's job is to conversationally answer the question. So think about that when you're building your knowledge base. And they were like, whoa, you could see like their mind shifting. You guys were really ahead of the game in thinking that way because people are so used to those traditional bots that if you were actually thinking, I want something that will answer that student's question. I think a year ago, not a lot of people were thinking that way. So kudos to your team for having that be a criteria.
Yeah, and one of the other things too, I mean, whenever I say we have it on every page, like we're really treating this as an any audience member tool. So we have like our employee handbook as part of
I
the
love that.
knowledge base, and we have sports information in there. We have alumni information in there. So really, any audience person that comes to our site and is asking any sort of question, our chat bot, his name is Archie, so it's ArchieBot, that he can answer that, like whoever you are.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. So we've kind of talked about the journey of what you all were looking for, things like that. Now, what about some examples of when you were able to observe it as you kind of launched it, where it helped you or a student solve a specific problem or it enhanced their experience? Kind of like a cool story that you maybe can pull out of that.
Right. So one of the things that we noticed, like we launched this in about like the end of April. And so I remember it was like towards the beginning of summer, like our summer session. And it's typically the time where students who are maybe local to us, but they go to university someplace else. And so they come home for the summer and they want to take a couple of classes, here with us, so then they can transfer that back to their main institution. And so in the transcripts, I was noticing that our chatbot was having difficulty answering how someone would apply that's just kind of like a temporary student or is just there to take a a couple of classes, and we didn't have a good answer for it because we didn't have a good answer for it on our website. So I saw this. I saw this was a time whenever the chatbot was handing that off to us, for assistance. And I worked with our admissions team to write up detailed instructions for those students who are looking to take one or two classes. They're non-degree seeking students. We have all this university speak for who these kids technically are, but they don't know that. So we wrote up these instructions. We added it to the knowledge base as a text document. And like right away, the chatbot knew how to answer those sorts of questions. I think that's been one of the most enlightening things for us is like, we looked at this as a tool to help alleviate some of the work that we had with like all extra phone calls, extra emails, and that sort of thing. But it has revealed to us like these knowledge gaps that we have, which is very insightful for a website, but then also like what people are looking for. And, especially like the time of year, if there's trends like that, it's been fun actually, just kind of see
I love
this
that you said that.
dimension of our site.
Well,
That's
I love
awesome.
that you said fun because I actually said it probably sounds cheesy whenever I'm demoing it to people to buy. They're like, this guy's full of it. He says it's fun, but it is, right? Because it's not hard. Like it reveals these gaps that you probably have from a process communication standpoint already. It's just not revealed because students probably are wondering this and they just don't have a way to find it out. So it
Right.
helps you fill those gaps. But then once you're kind of like alerted of it, it's easy to fill the gap. Like you said, you put together a text, you loaded it in, and it just knew how to do it now, right?
Absolutely.
It's fun.
It
You
is.
also, I also think about the students who are afraid to ask questions. Mallory, our chief strategist of Enrollify, tells the story when she was a guidance counselor. She posed anonymous questions, and the number one question students asked were, do I bring my own toilet paper to the dorm? And nobody asked her that to her face, but once they got behind a computer, and it's like, that's the same, you didn't know these students were looking for this information or asking these questions until you gave them the opportunity or a safe space to be able to do that. And now you're better serving your students because you gave them a space to ask those questions. So they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what to ask. It's so confusing. There's so much going on. That process sounds like it needed some additional texts and steps for it. So I love that example. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about some of, you mentioned some trends and types of years or cycle time of year. What are some of those trends and themes that you've noticed as you're combing through these transcripts or paying attention to that data?
Yeah. So I mentioned that we launched this like the last week of April in 2024. And that was like right at the beginning of finals week. The upcoming weekend is commencement. And people were asking questions about like tickets for commencement. What was the dress code? I mean, just like that point you just had there, like no one was asking about dress code, but on there they were. Are strollers allowed? Are umbrellas allowed? All those sorts of things. And then like a couple weeks later after that, there were a flurry of questions about housing and roommate assignments. And we found out that the university had just released the roommate assignment portal and like the dorms and apartments. So all of this like upcoming freshman class was like on there trying to get their space and their roommates sorted out. So that's why there was, like flurry of questions around that. In the summer, it was like a lot of orientation questions. And then you noticed like towards the end of July that like that turn shifted to, okay, the fall semester is about to start, because then people are asking about billing questions, about their financial aid, about their scholarships, like how do I reserve my books, all of those sorts of questions that are key to the beginning of the year. And I just took a peek today to see like what people are asking. And at the end of this month, we have like our pre-registration for the spring classes. So people are asking like, when did I get to register for classes? Who is my advisor? How do I contact my advisor? How do I make an appointment? And this is on top of like, we're also in the height of like recruiting season for freshmen. And so you still have that kind of activity of people asking about like, what are admission requirements? And is there a fee waiver code I can use? And all those sorts of questions.
That's awesome. And that's, like I said, I think that's also part of part of the fun part about it, like you were mentioning earlier, because again, you just get alerted to trends. And I always tell that Mallory story with the toilet
Toilet
paper.
paper, it's
I
so
always tell
good.
it because
It's
it's
so
so good.
good.
It's so indicative of like people, the nature of a person, and like, oh, I'm not going to ask about toilet paper. That's embarrassing.
Oh,
Like what people perceive as embarrassing, but still really need to know. That's an important thing to know if
yeah.
you're going to
Yeah.
have toilet paper now once you get on campus. So
I,
anyway,
I
that's
like though, Brandy. Oh, sorry, Brendan. Sorry to
no,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off there.
No, you're good.
We often talk about like how much time internal team save by having the assistants answer questions, but all those trends and insights that I just heard you talk about are all really student facing and like better serving the students. I think we
Mhm.
tend to see the gratification that comes from, I don't have to answer this phone or I've saved some minutes, but all of those questions are questions real students had about services and you were
Right.
able to answer them. That's awesome.
And that's like another reason, because a lot of those questions were like current student type of questions. And I think a lot of times those students can be overlooked in a chatbot because it might be very recruitment geared. So this tool is definitely multifaceted for us, to be able to answer all sorts of questions.
That's awesome. Now, one of the things that I've always loved about Element is we look at what our partners are doing, especially as we launch into new product categories and things like that. We always look to our partners that are trailblazing and really eager to get started on it for feedback, right? And things that you want to see. And I know for a fact USI was instrumental in us introducing some new functionality surrounding our insights dashboards. So, what can you tell us about that, kind of that experience and what you all needed?
Well, I can say that like getting up and off the ground with Element was really easy. I mean, just from like out of the box, it was really easy setup with adding all of our knowledge base. And when we have needed some extra hand holding along the process, the Element team has been very responsive and helpful. We're still working through like some handoff situations with the bot and with our team here. And I think part of that is just simply because, we only use it as the chat bot. So we don't have someone like in a CRM all day who's able to kind of be there if the chat bot isn't. But, these are all things that we're figuring out and are working through. And like I said, the team's been very responsive and helpful for us. The insights dashboard, like I was digging around one day in the dashboard because I needed to prepare a report for our board of trustees. And I saw this like metric area that talked about it's kind of like the sources. And I do know like whenever the chatbot would answer someone during, the chat conversation, it would cite its source, which I love because that way I can see like where did it find that answer? And I could see that. And so I thought like that this tool could be able to show me like what sources were used like the most or what was the most helpful to the bot to answer questions. And it didn't quite work that way. And I thought I was just using it wrong. So I reached out to the Element team and I kind of explained like what I was seeing, but then how I thought it might work or should work. And they were like, that's a good idea. So let's just do that. And so they implemented it. And it basically it shows you for whatever time period you're looking at, it shows you the list of sources that the bot used to answer questions. And so then you can rank it by which pages were the most helpful. And why this is important to me is because that helps me see some of these trends. So if I
Cool.
see that during the month of like September, let's just say like a certain bursar page was the most used, then that tells me a lot of people were asking questions about billing or tuition and fees and that sort of thing. So you can kind of see like which areas of the website were being kind of utilized the most for that. And and that also tells you too, like that there's some really great information on that page because it's
Right.
being used a lot.
Very useful information. Yeah.
I'm sure that our other partners appreciate that that insights dashboard as well. That's critical to see, even just in helping understand students' paths and where they're going and what they're looking at. So I will thank you, Brandy, on their behalf as well. Yeah. Were you able to find out any other areas or gaps that the bot has helped you identify when it comes to content, maybe on your website?
Oh, for sure. So I gave you the example of like the summer school and like helping students figure that out. Another one is I started seeing this trend and how people were phrasing. They were looking, or they were asking if like a certain program was a STEM designated program. And I had seen this come up a few times in the chat transcript, and the phrasing was the same. And it was just so unique that I was like, what is this? Is this some sort of like professional development thing for school teachers? Or was it like some kind of, scholarship for students if they can major in a STEM program? I didn't understand what it was for, but I was seeing some consistency here as trend. And so I had a quick Google search. I discovered that it's a program through the Department of Homeland Security for international students who major in a STEM program. And it has to be like a STEM designated program. And it impacts the time that they have on their F1 visa. So obviously very important information for international students who are looking to study at your university. So
Yeah.
I reached out to our provost office and was like, hey, this is something that I'm seeing. Are you aware of this? And they said, yes, we have a list of programs that are, designated with this through the Department of Homeland Security. And so we're working on a plan now to go to those program pages to kind of inject those keywords. So that way it comes up better in search results. The bot can answer those questions a little better.
Yeah.
That was definitely something that, like I had no idea that it even existed. And then, like through this, like this conversation transcript, I learned something new.
That's huge. I feel like
Yeah.
that's
That's
huge.
awesome.
Imagine the different students you're going to get from that too, like knowing that you've got these programs available. The students who were looking at USI, now they know, and you're going to get those apps. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
That's super cool. So we've talked a lot about the student experience, what you've been able to kind of identify from a gaps perspective on like your website content, things along nature. But are there any trends or maybe numbers that you've noticed for how it's impacted like frontline staff and folks that are interacting with that typically you would have been answering these questions on the front
Yeah.
line? Have you seen any trends there or noticed any numbers that you've been able to track so far?
I don't have any hard numbers. I know like right now, like if anyone who hits the contact button on our university side, it comes to me and I'm like the human switchboard and I'll forward it out to the appropriate department. And it does seem like the volume of that has gone down. Some of like looking ahead, one of our goals is to kind of look into maybe swapping out that contact button and replacing it with like the chatbot, our ArchieBot, because we do feel like a lot of those questions can be answered through the chatbot. And if not, then he knows how to hand it off to one of us. So that's probably something that we might be looking at in the next year is doing something like that.
Is there anything else that you might be looking at? Like I said, you've tackled really a big chunk of making that big step of implementing something like this, but are there any like you can see on the horizon, implementing it with different roles, like with AI assistants and things like that? Anything you have on the horizon?
Well, we are working on a new like academic program pages. And so being able to like kind of have a more prominent, search area on those pages where people can ask like program specifics just right there is like a kind of a long-term goal. I haven't even looked into like how we might do something like that. And I haven't brought that up to our Element team yet. So, but those are things that, we would have, I guess, on the horizon.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
And I'm just going to cheat a little bit, everybody. While you guys were talking, I logged in to your instance, Brandi. I know.
Cheater, pumpkin eater.
You asked about numbers, but I can tell you that this one's actually kind of cool. The average messages per conversation is 2.37. And to me, that says that a student is getting their question answered in less than 3 exchanges. And that's huge, right? Like imagine the time you spend like, if you pick up the phone or if you have to reroute somebody or if you're like forwarding an email, the fact that a student can have 2 exchanges less than 3 and get that question answered, that's great customer service. That is a great student experience. So I did cheat a little bit, but you can put that feather in your cap, Brandi, when you're reporting out.
And I know I mentioned earlier about, like the chatbot is just so polite, but we've also noticed that in the exchanges, people will say like, thank you to the chatbot and have a nice day to the chatbot. And I'm over here like scratching my head, like, do they know? Do they know it's not a real person? But that's okay.
That's okay. Archie's Archie, right?
Yes, that's
They
right.
doesn't need to be AI. Oh,
It,
this is great.
it reminds me a little bit too. I know this is like kind of off topic, but we
No.
have the little robots that deliver food on campus.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
our students love those little guys, like, and how they're, like they'll sometimes fall off the sidewalk and they'll make sure that it's put back up right and everything's okay. And so I think we have a generations of students that like, the bots.
I tell this to people all the time, and usually you're talking to people that are like, in our age range, and they're like, no, that's silly. That's not true. I'm telling you, this upcoming generation, they prefer talking to AI or dealing with robots as opposed to people. Like it sounds strange. It's weird, but it's true. Like the preference is there. And, so like you said, sometimes they do it better than we can, right? They're nicer than we are. They're more polite. They're not judgmental. And that's the perception of what students see as well. So awesome. Well, we do have one more box to check, right? And it's a tradition here on the show that we ask everybody that comes on, but we'll toss it over to you and see what you give us. So when are you in your element, Brandi?
I feel like I'm in my element mostly like when I'm in problem solving mode. I mean, I feel like that's what we do in our jobs every day is like we're trying to solve a problem. And it could be as simple as fixing a broken link or, fixing some content on a page that's just not working. But we're always trying to figure out how to fix things, how to make it better, how to fix a user experience. And with this ArchieBot that we have, it's opened up a lot of, new problems to fix, but they're good problems because, they're showing us where we have gaps in our knowledge base and we can fix our website. And so these sorts of things, I guess I'm kind of a geek at it. They're fun to me. I love it. And so that's whenever I feel like I'm most of my element is just like problem solving. Let's figure it out. Let's make a plan. Let's do this.
I love that. And that's an analogy that I use quite often is, there's more, like you said, more or different work has been created, but it's because someone went in and turned the lights on in a dirty room, and now it was always dirty. The work was always there, but now you're aware of it. And now you have a tool that can help you fix it. And it's more like having a maid, right? As opposed to having to go and do it yourself. So it's nice.
And I really don't know how else we would have discovered these knowledge-based gaps.
That's a good point.
I don't, because, Google Analytics isn't going to tell me that. A site monitoring tool isn't going to tell me that. It's just telling me broken links and accessibility scores and that sort of thing. I don't know of another tool that's going to show me where these gaps are in our knowledge bases to kind of give me marching instructions on where to fix it and how to fix it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Brandi. This has been super helpful. And for those of you who are wondering why this went so smoothly, Brandi used to be a podcast host. So I feel like this was a very professional podcast for us, Brendan.
Yes.
Like
I was like, man, this is great. This is just
great.
A good episode. We're flowing.
And that's
what
you get when you've got former podcasting experience. You could see it just come out in this podcast, Brandi. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I blame the host. You guys have been great. It's been fun, and I appreciate it. So,
thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brandi.
Thank you.
In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.